few minutes. All right.
I actually have two questions. One is going to be, are we going to have access to this database in the cockpit of manned aircraft so we can see where all these drones are flying? Because it's hard enough to see, other traffic, let alone these tiny little drones. And you go on YouTube, there's thousands of videos. None of these guys are flying in line of sight. They're going way out, and and it's just crazy that now we have to worry about all these drones flying around. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for all the pilots, but are we going to be able to have? Is that going to be integrated into ForFlight or ADSB or anything like that?
Great question. So when remote ID, the proposed rule for remote ID came out, we call it Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, NPR. When we put that out, we received over 53,000 comments on it. One of the requirements we had in the proposed rule was that your drone had to connect to a network via LTE, 5G, Wi-Fi, or something like that. So you'd have a nationwide map of drones, kind of like how ADSB works with satellite connectivity. I think 50,000 out of the 53,000 said that's a terrible idea. And we took a look at that and we adjusted our rulemaking to still require remote ID, but now that it's only broadcast from the device itself with no network connectivity requirement. So what I'm getting at is that the network broadcast range is probably not going to be as big as you'd like it to be. And so there was a group that I was a part of that went around and around on your very question. Do we make this accessible to pilots? Can we make it accessible to pilots? Should we make it accessible to pilots? Because that could be a pretty big distraction too if you're flying over an area and all of a sudden on your moving map you've got 50 of these little dots and you're trying to figure that out. So where it was left at was that it's still under consideration of how we're going to work that into the traditional aircraft operators world. But the idea is that most of these drones should be below 400 feet. And I'm saying this from a bit of a fairy tale. I've seen the videos too. I know what they're doing out there. But we're trying to get the word out, keep your drone below 400 feet, all that good stuff, so that there is that separation. 500 feet typically is as low as a manned aircraft is going to go unless it's landing or taking off. 400 feet is the highest a drone is going to go, so we have that 100-foot separation in there. However, in the future, as this grows and we see how it's working, I don't think that consideration is just going to be shoved off the table. I do think it's something that we will consider and making that available. So great question.
Yeah, I think a layer maybe in ForFlight that we could turn on or off just to see, like where we can turn it on or off if we're coming into an airport or something, or
it sounds like you were part of that discussion that was because that was exactly what was mentioned on and off. So we are looking at that. It is being considered, but since this is all kind of new, we're still trying to figure out how well it's going to work and how we can integrate it with your avionics package.
And thank you. And the other question I had was, I fly line of sight RC airplanes as well and helicopters. Am I going to need one for each individual aircraft?
When you say one, like the remote ID?
Yeah, I mean none of my planes are
the broadcast module can be moved, and on the recreational side, the broadcast module can be moved from aircraft to aircraft.
Okay, yeah, that's
if you're flying one and you're done with that one, you put it on the next one.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Hi, so I actually have two questions, and the first one is, I know that there's an effort by CBOs right now to increase the lower registration limit from 250 grams up to 1,000, so I'm curious if the FAA has any interest in that, or if that's something that they're kind of investigating their own before the reauthorization bill goes through with that suggestion.
So this device back here shocks me if I speak about any sort of proposed rulemaking or consideration.
Makes sense.
So I can't comment on that one right now, sorry.
Okay, great. The second one is related to FRIAs, and you had mentioned none of them have been approved yet. I'm wondering if you can give any number of how many applications have been so far, and if there's any time estimate on when those will start actually getting approved.
Yeah, so the applications are considered PII. So the application itself is considered unique and proprietary to that group, so I can't give out that number right now. I can tell you that FRIAs are written into the rule for a reason, because we understand the effect that remote ID is going to have. We also understand the need for aircraft to be able to, drones to be able to operate RC aircraft, what have you, without remote ID in certain areas, as they've been doing forever. And I hear that argument a lot. We've been doing this forever. And I say, you're absolutely right. So we see that need. The FAA recognized that identification areas are going to be established, but they'll be established based on those requests, considering the area and security and risk around those areas. So coming is what the short answer is.
Just one question about enforcement. Is enforcement reactive typically, or is there any proactive aspect to it?
So is enforcement reactive? I'm going to say every enforcement action is reactive. We don't do proactive enforcement. We do proactive education, kind of what I'm doing here. But we do enforcement actions against drones and their operators. We don't publicize them, although we're going to, in the near future, come up with a way to advertise, is a terrible word to say that, but let the public know, hey, don't be this person flying the drone because this is what happened to them. But we issue fines. There has been a lot of certificate action. Curious if you're just wondering, if you fly a drone and you're under Part 107 and you don't have your remote pilot certificate, the FAA can actually take action on your Part 61 airman certificate. So not a good idea. That's happened. It happened to an airline captain on his ATP. Bad idea. So we do conduct enforcement. I've been with the FAST team for a long time before I came into their headquarters and our Office of Communication, and I think education is the way to go. So if there's an opportunity where a drone pilot is doing something contrary to the regulations and they're not endangering the NAS and it's not a major deal, then I would like to counsel that person and talk to them and get them into the FAA culture of safety and help them understand why we do things the way we do them. I think that has a better impact than sending them a letter in the mail saying the FAA is investigating you, you have 14 days to respond, because typically they lawyer up right away, which is exactly what I would do, and then they don't talk and the learning goes right out the door. It's just now an enforcement piece. So I try to do the education. We had a whole presentation, I believe, yesterday on compliance, our compliance policy. That is a great tool in helping going through education, counseling, remedial training before we start taking certificate actions or fines. So we find that you get a lot more safety out of that than you do finding somebody. But like I've said, we've taken certificate action. We've done fines. So yes, it does happen. Thank you.
Can a spotter have binoculars to keep line of sight for just assisting in patrolling a drone?
So visual observers, somebody helping you watch the drone, has to be able to see it with unaided vision, right? And not only that, but if they're standing next to you, they have to be able to communicate with you without distracting you and without electronic devices needed. I mean, I can't, talk to you on my cell phone when I'm 200 yards away. So under the recreational flyer side, that visual observer has to be co-located with you, so pretty much standing near you, and see it with unaided vision. So yeah, you can't use binoculars or a telescope or flight tracking software to see your drone. It's got to be with your eyes. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Can you speak to the, let's say, making videos for YouTube or TikTok, recreational versus commercial, how you see that?
As long as you accept my answer is not legal advice. So this gets into the discussion of intent. What did you intend to do with that drone? So you like flying drones. They take really cool videos. They take really cool pictures. You want to share them with your family and friends. So you post them on your Facebook page. You post them on your YouTube page, assuming you're doing everything legal. You're not flying beyond visual line of sight, right? More than likely, that's considered recreational flying. You're just doing this for the fun of it. Same drone, same photo, same video. This time you took it because your buddy asked you to take it. Hey, can you take a picture of my property? I just want a really cool picture of my property. That may be considered a non-recreational flight because you're not going to go fly for yourself. You're going to go fly for this person who asked you to do a specific thing, regardless if money's being exchanged. So again, I'm not an attorney, but and the worst thing to try to argue is what did you intend to do at the time? I can't imagine how that would go, but I'll leave that up to the attorneys. So typically speaking, if the intent of your flight is just to take cool pictures, you'll be just fine. And I'll give you one last example, just to muddy the water a little bit more, because I think I have time. Yeah, I do. I figured I could do this right at the very end. I can run out the door and you guys can't get me. But if you were taking let's say you took a picture and it was just this gorgeous picture of a sunset with your city in the background, and you posted it on your Facebook page, because man, that's a cool picture. Everybody check out what I did with my drone. I love this thing, it's great, you should get one too. And a news station says, hey, we saw your picture on your Facebook page. We'll give you 20 bucks for it. Can we use it? You can take that 20 bucks and they can use it. It didn't change the intent of your flight at the time. Now, you're like, well, I take really cool pictures. News organizations will give you 20 bucks a shot. So now you start going out and taking all these pictures of sunsets and tagging news organizations in them because you know they're gonna pay you. No, I think you might be blurring that intent a little bit from recreational to commercial or Part 107. Is that clear as mud? Okay, very good.
3 questions, but one of them, if you answer, I would like to know how many incidents, because I'm a private pilot, have we got on record that private pilots have hit drones that either caused cracked windshield or prop strike, anything?
So it's a really tough question to answer. I think it's in the single digits. I will tell you that. It's in the single digits. We track all that on our website. If you go to our UAS website, you can see all the U.S. incident reports that come in. In the U.S., there's only one. There might be 2, but there's one I know confirmed, but it wasn't a civilian aircraft. It was a Black Hawk helicopter in New York.
And the last question, because I used to live down, or I still do, I live next to Lantan Airport, next to Palm Beach International. When the president came in, I thought that, I don't know if Secret Service or military or something, they could put a ban, a radar, or not, a radio ban, jam it so no drones could go in there. Is that true? And could you do that here at Lakeland to prevent drones from coming in here without authorization?
So I'm going to answer this very carefully so I don't get sniped when I walk out of this building. Department of Transportation, FAA, we do drone detection at certain airports. DOJ, FBI does drone mitigation, which is a fancy word for taking drones out of the sky. So I'm going to stay in my swim lane and say that that's not something we do, but I've worked the Super Bowl. I go down there, I do a lot of videos for them, and we work hand in hand with the FBI and Customs and Border Patrol. They have really cool stuff that I can't really talk about, but they can handle those threats.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess my last question, it seems like we're running out of time. You talked about reactive enforcement. How engaged will FAA be with local law enforcement respective of these enforcement initiatives? Because it seems to me that you're going to have a whole big pot full of things to be looking at.
Yeah, it's a great take because we are built for traditional aircraft enforcement investigation. It's tracked on radar, we know where it's going to land, and we can react. Drones are in the trunk of a car and before I can even get out of the building, right? We depend on our law enforcement partners for a lot of the groundwork, and we do a lot of education with them. We have agents in the FAA, our Law Enforcement Assistance Program, that are dedicated to assisting law enforcement agents across the country on how to handle drone stuff. I filmed a 3-part video series on law enforcement for drones. It's on our FAA YouTube channel. It's short little bites so they can watch it quickly to help them understand what we need from them, what they can expect from us, so that we can work together so that we can solve these issues.
State of North Carolina, and I recognize those initiatives right there already.
Yep, fantastic. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Great.
All right, thanks everyone.